Ladies and gentlemen, we'll come to order. Notice was properly given of this special meeting of the City of San Angelo Development Corporation to be held today, August 13th at 8:30 a.m. in the East Mezzanine of City Hall Plaza, 72 West College Avenue here in San Angelo, for the purpose of considering the posted agenda items. This meeting is now called to order at 8:30 a.m., and let's call to the podium Amy Mazzell Flint, who will give us our invocation. Amy is, as you know, a school board member and is, maybe as you didn't know, the president of the Temple locally and is the executive director of the San Angelo Clubhouse.
Yeah. I keep myself either busy or either in trouble or out of trouble, depending on how you look at it. So thank you all so much for having me. As we gather today, we pause to honor the work before us and the community that we serve. I'd like to thank you all for your service and the important work that you do. In the Jewish tradition, we're reminded that every act of building, whether of structures, opportunities, or relationships, is a reflection of our shared responsibility to create a better world. May the choices you make today be guided by wisdom and fairness, and may all your actions be marked with integrity and compassion. My prayer is that in your roles, each of you see that not only is it possible for San Angelo's growth, but also how that growth can lift every person who calls our city home. Together we say, Amen, or as we say in Hebrew, Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be your will.
Thank you, Amy. All right, we'll now open for public comment, issues or items that are not on the agenda raised by the public at this time. Citizens who have registered for public comment prior to the start of the meeting should speak from the podium. Begin by stating their name and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Board members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. Board takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items from citizens who have registered for public comment prior to the start of this meeting. Ms. Navarez, do we have anyone registered for public comment?
Yes, and that'll be Ms. Desiree Johnson.
Desiree Johnson, come to the mic.
Good morning, everyone. How are y'all doing today? I just wanted to take a few minutes in public comment to give y'all an update on the business plan competition. We closed it Friday, August 5th. It was a whirlwind. And I just want to say a special thanks to Nora. She spent a little extra time over the weekend helping us review those applicants for eligibility and going over that. We had 37 applicants this year, which is on par with what we've done in the last couple years. So I also wanted to thank Andy Marquis and her team at Media Advantage for doing a wonderful job getting the word out, helping us promote the competition, and to all the businesses that have entered, just a successful good luck to them in the competition process, and especially to y'all as the board for helping us facilitate this competition and give this opportunity to these folks. We are very much looking forward to dwindling those initial entries down to our finalists, and those finalists will work to compete with a support team that's made up of a business advisor from the ASU Small Business Development Center and a student in the business plan competition internship program. And I am very excited to say that we had a great buy-in from the student body at the Norris Vincent College of Business. That's a big part of the program. And this year we had 23 student applicants in the internship process. So I'm currently working to weed those down and find the best of the best to help support our local small businesses. So thank you all so much for your time and dedication and support of the program, and I'm excited to see how this year turns out. Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll now move directly to today's consent agenda. Consider approving the regular meeting minutes for July 9th, 2025, and the special meeting scheduled on July 23rd, 2025 from Nora Navarez. Do we have any corrections, additions, edits? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Mahaffey and Mr. Lassiter. And if you would agree with those gentlemen, will you say aye?
Aye.
If you do not, will you say nay? Are there any abstentions? It is done. Next, we move to the regular agenda. Consider approving the June 25 financial statements and disbursement listing presented by Tina Diersky, Director of Finance. Tina, welcome.
Thank you. I have for you the June 2025 financial statements, our third quarter. There we go. So sales tax was up in June by 3.77%. And it was up even further in July and August by 6.01% and 5.63% respectively over the same months in the previous year. On your balance sheet for the economic development side, you have about $7.7 million in the money market account that we're holding liquid in anticipation of projects, and about $3 million in longer-term investments. Your unassigned fund balance, which obviously represents some of the funds available for future projects, is at $8.7 million. And then you have just over $1 million available in the current year budget for projects as well. On the income statement, you'll see that sales tax is over budget at 80%. Well, we're 75% through the year as of the end of June, mostly due to conservative budgeting. There were a few operational payments that were made as well for the agreements with the city for staff and city services. There was also a project expenditure for the housing study. The housing study was fully expended as of the end of June, but you'll recall that we did agree to increase that amount due to the flooding and some increased oversight on that project. For the balance sheet, on the ballot side, currently I have most of our funds in the money market account, $7.7 million, with the remaining $6 million in longer-term investments. The undersigned fund balance in this fund is $13.1 million, and you still have $2.4 million in the current year for future projects. And then on the income statement for this one, the sales tax revenue, again, is in excess of the budget at 80%. Interest income is over by 2% or $8,200. And we had a payment go out here as well for the city services agreement, as well as the $101,000 that went out for the affordable housing that you all approved in a previous meeting for that special project that Galilee is doing. That's all I have for the financial statements. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to discuss.
I had a couple of questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that there were some changes on the budget, items that we've discussed in recent meetings. The capital line item obviously increasing pretty significantly. I'm looking at the Economic Development Fund.
Okay.
So originally there was $40,000 budgeted in capital in economic development. Do you happen to recall what that might have been for? And is it still?
The 40,000?
Yes, ma'am.
That would be, we just budget that every year. Nora puts that in the budget, just in case there's any problems that come up at the BRC, such
Okay.
as HVAC or roof or, just repairs.
Nothing specific.
Just minor repairs that might be needed throughout the year.
Okay. And then I'm assuming the big adjustment in capital is associated with the relief
Yes.
money
that's
that we've
correct.
allocated?
Is that correct, Jonathan? No? The what? Oh, yes. That would be the land buyback from, was it Big Country? And for the railport,
Okay.
the 1.4 million and then the 400,000. Thank you, Jonathan. So we haven't, this is as of June, so we haven't yet budgeted for the flood events.
Okay.
So that'll be in a future financial statement.
And then you were talking about funds that are available, and, excuse me, you have, I think you noted that 8.7 million was unassigned.
Correct.
Does that include the $1 million that's in future projects? And then I see that we're running at a deficit in budget, and does that?
Oh,
looks
you
like-
mean the budget revenue over expenditures?
Yes, ma'am.
That's due to carryover, so at the end of every fiscal year,
Yes.
if we have projects that are encumbered, they carry over.
Yes.
And so appears to be a deficit, but it's actually due to projects that were budgeted in a previous year that we carry over into the current year.
So the 8.7 million that's unassigned, does that include future projects dollars or not?
Yes,
It does.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, is available. 8.7 in the unassigned fund balance plus the future projects is available for projects.
Okay, so future projects is 1.1 in our budget today.
Correct,
So it would be 9.8?
yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You bet. Any other questions?
Everybody good?
I was hoping Travis was lining up a whale for us. I was hoping you had a big whale to bring us.
No. Ms. Navarez, do we have any
I
public
thought we were about
comment?
to do a big project.
No, no. I'm just trying to get my arms around it,
No,
that's all.
that's good, that's good. I
No public
appreciate it.
comment. Do we have any other questions or discussion from members of the board? We'll now entertain a motion to approve the budget as presented, or accept the budget as presented.
So move.
Mr. Mahaffey?
Second.
Mr. Lorenzo? If you are in favor of approving the motion as presented, will you say aye? Aye. If not, will you say nay? Are there any abstentions? And it is done. All right, thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
We'll now move to a public hearing regarding a project in an amount not to exceed $1 million to provide affordable housing assistance for needed repairs to damage resulting from the July 4th, 2025 flooding for properties located within the designated flood area. The project to be administered by Galilee Community Development Corporation. Galilee providing repairs to housing eligible under 42 USC Section 12745. As approved in Section 505, Texas Local Government Code for a Type B Development Corporation, and authorizing the board president to negotiate and execute all related documents and recommending ratification by city council. Bob Schneeman is at the mic. He is Economic Development Project Manager.
Thanks, sir. As the board is well aware, but for the public's information, we were required by Section 505 to hold a public hearing anytime we enter into a project, and we have to hold a minimum of one public hearing, and we also have to give a minimum of 60 days public notice. This particular project is for the flood damage for the affordable housing areas. It was approved at a special meeting on July 23rd. The basic elements of it are $1 million was set aside for, or was designated for affordable housing. We don't have a program developed yet. You'll get some information on that in a little while. Galilee will be the point of contact for it. Because they're Costa DC funds, they must meet the eligibility requirements under affordable housing. As I said, Galilee will be coordinating everything. City is also looking at fee waivers or permit fee waivers, reductions, that sort of thing. And we've gotten council. Have we gotten council approval on this, or we're about to? We've gotten council approval. So we're now in the 60-day waiting period. I'll entertain questions, or you can open it for a public hearing.
Well, we need to do public comment first. And Ms. Navarez, do we have public comment for this?
No, sir.
All right, any questions, discussion from the board? Anybody wake up this morning and realize that they didn't like this anymore? I think we're good. Bob, thank you for your presentation this morning. We'll see if we can get something done by 60 days after July 23rd.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we move to an update presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the affordable housing assistance for needed repairs to damage resulting from the July 4th, 2025 flooding of properties located within the designated flooded area. Stephanie Hamby will join us at the mic and give us an update on what her plans are to this point.
Good morning. Not much to update right this moment. We have a group coming in on Monday that is going to start repairs. I don't even know where they're all from. They're from all over the place, but they're coming in. They're our first group to come in to start repairs. They'll be here for 2 weeks. We're hoping to tackle 5 to 10 houses with them, depending on how many volunteers they bring in. But we have identified, I think, 202 homes that need assistance. Just in our first round of phone calls, we're estimating 300 to 400 more that are going to need some type of assistance getting either materials, labor, or both. Our first round is really to get safe, secure, and sanitary. So get the insulation in, the sheetrock up, and the tape done. That's our first round, and then we'll go back and we'll see what people have gotten through FEMA and through other funding sources, and then see where we can match to get the house back to kind of where it was before the flood, if not better. So that's kind of where we are. We have secured a warehouse for at least 3 months to hold all of our materials in. We've gotten a couple shipments of sheetrock and flooring and all, subfloor and stuff in, so we're ready to go for this team that comes in on Monday. We also have Texans on Mission has been here they came in for the muck and gut, and then that group left and the repair teams came in. So they have worked on, I think, 17 homes, and they have another 15, I think, to go. So they're just putting sheetrock up and taping and getting it taped out as well. Samaritan's Purse is also here on the repair side. I am unsure exactly how many homes that they're working on and what they're doing, but we're hoping between them and this group coming in, plus the other groups we have, I think, coming in that we're hoping to stagger, that will help us on the labor side of things, so we can put more of the money into the materials and to stretching it farther for them. And then we'll go back and we'll be able to reassess. So I'm hoping next month I have a better idea of where this money will go and what it will be spent on, kind of in a better process than what we have just today. But that's our update for right now.
Do you need any action from us today?
Well, could I, maybe,
Please.
could I talk about roofs?
Of course.
One of the possibilities for fast tracking some action is related to an initiative Stephanie had in mind to begin with before the storm. And that is roofing. We might be able to fast track a response for roofing issues because recall a piece of the $1 million that has been allocated already was 182 or 183,000 that was already designated affordable housing money. So it was already in the works for a project, or waiting for a project for Stephanie to work on. She said, well, I had roofing in mind for that. And she said, I just need to put the pieces together. We may be able to fast track that. Bob, did you determine whether or not we have a 60-day wait on that one?
We don't have a 60-day waiting period, I don't believe.
No,
ahead.
since that's from the ballot side, I mean, it's already approved project, and, I mean, we already have the contract with Galilee to utilize those funds. The only thing I was thinking of is I thought we did a portion of that 180, I thought we recently approved for like a multi-family residential project, so I didn't know if it was for the full.
I think we brought the number down to 180 to fund a
Okay.
piece of that.
Yes, we got the 101,000 for the other projects, so that left the 183 that is remaining.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little dangerous to do this during a meeting, but I'm a little bit thinking out loud. She's got this. This was already a vision they had. The need is clear in that area, we think in the qualifying area.
Yes.
We have the money lined up. I think what remains is to make sure that we don't have any internal hangups related to budgeting or dedication of the money or anything. And then the other thing, and this is the reason I wanted to go through it today, is we want to make sure it doesn't conflict with any programs that other agencies in the area have. And Matt, I'm really thinking about you. What do you need to know to see if that in any way conflicts with the initiatives that the Area Foundation has?
It would not have any conflict. We're working with Galilee and other partners to get folks back safe, secure, and this would have no conflict with what we're trying to do. What I think Stephanie is proposing is it makes sense that as you're going out and you're finding some of these houses that need repair work from the flooding, well, what good is it going to do to have new sheetrock and they've still got a roofing issue? And if they qualify to the affordable qualification, why not? She's got this other bucket from prior budget dollars. Let's move forward with that, because the majority of what we're trying to do is work on remediation from water coming into the house from the flooding, not water coming in through the roof.
Yep.
That's a key point, is the event that created the flooding also created or exacerbated or revealed the roofing issues. And so I think we would need to accept that the same event creates the need for both responses. And if you're happy with that, I think that'd be a great way to allow her and staff to work together for some fast track action. It would simply be related to roofing at this point.
Yes, and if the money isn't all spent on roofing, we would like the ability to put it back into the regular flood repairs as well.
This has already been approved and it's already in the budget. Probably don't need to take action, but I don't think it ever hurts to get a motion to go ahead and pull the trigger on this. So I will entertain a motion.
If we could, we'd like that to authorize the president to negotiate and execute any agreements necessary for the accomplishment of that objective.
Can I get a motion to that effect?
Real quick, what's the amount again?
Well, the amount that is $182,000 approximately.
Okay.
In fact, do we have a financial that we could pull that exact number from? Housing,
I'm looking at it right now. Unprogrammed affordable housing,
that's it?
183, 687.
What page is it?
It's page 6 of the financials. Under the budgeted
That was
amount.
part of the budget amendment on Tuesday, last Tuesday.
We're talking about using that specifically for,
You see where I'm
Hey.
looking?
183, 687.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that amount was part of the $1 million that was approved by City Council last Tuesday for the affordable housing, and the remainder came out of the economic development side.
Right.
So if you want to designate that portion, we could certainly do that. Is that what we're talking about?
I think we want to authorize that portion at this point because we think we got some of the hurdles already knocked over. Which is
It may not have the same requirements for dispersing
other.
those funds that the remaining amounts will. Is that what we're saying?
The key is we've already got so many of the ducks lined up, this may be a way to fast track it, and the requirements for the rest of that million, or whatever that million ends up being in total,
Yes.
may be different. But until we have that program, this is a way to get started quickly.
Are we, just out of curiosity, are we narrowing this down to just roofing or roofing plus all the other items? Because personally, I don't want to handcuff you. I would like to give you this 183 and let you roll now before the 60 days.
That's what I would hope for, is what isn't covered in roofing, we can roll back into
Gotcha.
other things.
Well,
long as they're
let's
flood
talk
related.
about that. That's a good
If it
point.
rolls back into, then you go into the 60-day requirement, correct?
Well,
If
it
it
would allow-
exceeds.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think the full 183 is outside the 60-day because that's part of the ballot fund. So I think you're good to utilize that.
Then why don't we, if you want to kick that door wide open, then why don't we authorize the 183 for any otherwise allowable purpose
To include roofing
to include roofing?
repairs, right?
And we'll just ask her to be mindful and accountable for what she uses the money for.
It's good logic for me. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve 183, 687, and authorizing those funds to be used for any flooding relief assistance to include the roofing situation that you've.
And authorization for the president to negotiate and execute any necessary documents.
What he said.
Take that as a friendly.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to second, and I'm going to clarify that it is unprogrammed funds from affordable housing on the ballot side.
Thank you.
I think we have it before us. Mr. Mahaffey and Mr. Stribling, if you would agree, will you say aye? Aye. If you will not, will you say nay? Are there any abstentions? And it is done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. We appreciate you being here. All right. I guess I should have asked prior to the vote if we have any public comment, but none was registered before the meeting, so we move along. Public hearing regarding a project in an amount not to exceed $1 million for damage repairs as needed as a result of the July 4th, 2025 flooding to businesses located in the designated flooding area. Businesses must be eligible under Section 501 and Section 505 Texas Local Government Code for a Type B Development Corporation for the retention or creation of primary jobs, authorizing board president to negotiate and execute all related documents and recommending ratification by city council. Bob Schneeman is back at the mic.
Thank you. As with the affordable housing public hearing, this is the public hearing required for the second $1 million that was authorized for business assistance to flood-related damage. Also approved at the special meeting on July 23rd. It's important to point out here that FEMA does not really provide support for businesses. Staff recommended and board approved $1 million. The businesses to be eligible for this money must meet Section 501 and 505 requirements just as any other business that would receive funding from Costa DC. SBA is still operating in our building, taking claims and reports for loans and that sort of thing. Michael Looney has been quite busy going out and visiting with a number of the businesses, as has Desiree Johnson. Michael Looney will be the main point of contact. Again, city permit fee waivers or reductions in fees and an expedited process are being considered by the city. And we are in the 60-day waiting period.
Do we have any public comment? No public comment or any questions from the table? Desiree, would you like to come?
Next time.
Have a seat. All right, seeing no other comment, we will move along. Thank you, Bob. We appreciate your willingness to operate with one hand tied behind your back. Updated discussion and possible action regarding the project for damage repairs is needed from the result of the July 4th, 2025 flooding of businesses located in the designated flood area with a presentation by Michael Looney, Vice President of Marketing and Recruitment.
Good morning. Michael Looney, Vice President of Economic Development with the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce. Starting on the 7th of July, we initiated a exploratory response where Mike and I began reaching out to companies in the area, both in city limits and in county, that are NAICS code qualified companies. So these are companies that have or could take advantage of a Type B corporation. grants for economic development. So these are your primary job creators. Initiated calls to 45 companies. There were 45 in the city limits and in the county. Some of them being in the county are not very far outside the city limits. 10 of them sustained damage of different levels. One of those was in the city limits, and 9 of those were outside the city limits. There were 4 companies, and this is on that spreadsheet that I gave you. I know that it's a very tight print, but I wanted to at least just give you an idea of one pager of whom we contacted. Of the companies that were damaged, 10, as I said, there were 10 total, one in the city, 9 outside the city limits. There were 4 companies that we contacted that sustained no damage, but they had employees that were impacted. Some of those employees were high-level officers of these companies, and it took them out of commission. So we wanted to focus resources on them. The calls lasted until the 15th of July. During that time, any companies that sustained damage or companies that we were not able to reach telephonically or via text, we went out and saw. These are some images of the damage. The companies that sustained severe damage were very severely impacted. The companies that sustained minor damage was very light, easily recoverable. So these are just some images of, this is a company called Permian Radiator. They are near a low water crossing. They are on 2105. 2105 between 87 and the railport is a known industrial corridor. It's a very robust industrial corridor. There's a lot of manufacturing that emanates from the Concho Valley out to the world from this area. The picture on the left was, on the far left is Tricor Steel. That was the company that was impacted that's in the city limits. They're off of Pulliam. And we joined a team from the Small Business Administration and a gentleman named Bill Gravel Jr. from Washington, D.C. wanted to go out and personally survey the damage. You can see that the litter shows the force of the water. The water was coming through at a very fast rate. So what we discovered was that it wasn't just general gradual flooding, it was actually water at force. We found garage doors torn off, front loaders moved 10 feet on their own, being pushed aside. So it was quite heavy. So our involvement has been on multiple levels. It has been one, to gather information on the ground to understand what the impacts were and what a manufacturing business is experiencing when they sustain severe damage. We have reported all of these findings to all of the different agencies that are collectively known within the COAD. The COAD is the Concho Valley group response. It's a collaborative response. It's all the different agencies working together. What I've put together here, these are the slides that were from the COAD meeting, which was last week. I wanted to just flip through these quickly. If there's any questions, you can pause me. The packet that was presented at the COAD meeting, this is a multi-agency meeting, which is focused on recovery. And what we'd experienced, and some of you may have had these interactions with people who were affected or people who knew people who were affected, is that the first 3 to 4 weeks is response. That is very rapid. That's what we internally call diapers and water. That's the initial shock response. And then there's a pause. And that pause represents the transition period between response and recovery. 2 weeks ago, we were visited by 2 high-ranking members from FEMA. They came to see me and Mike and Steve. They did announce that they were on the ground. They had just arrived from Asheville, North Carolina, where they were there for 7 months, and they were there for the long-term recovery of Asheville. They're getting ready and now staging to do the same thing here. This shows an idea of what a response and recovery look like. And right now we are coming out of short term and we're going into intermediate and then vectoring up, building up with all the different agency members of the COAD into long term. And this is probably going to take a year. And that's to ensure that all businesses and residences, but in our case, our focus is businesses, understand what their damage was and what resources they need to truly and fully recover. It's a little bit different with NAICS code qualified manufacturing and distribution type businesses. These are our primary job creators. Having them out of commission or not at full capacity can have a long-term effect on the economy. We don't think that there was enough damage to make a severe impact to our economy that can't be recovered from relatively quickly. But we did hear stories of other communities where industrial areas were heavily flooded, and it made a significant impact on the budgets and on the tax yields in later years. So we want to make sure that that is prevented. We also want to help keep up morale. And we wanted these companies that we contacted and visited to know that we're all learning this together. We're not, the community is learning how to deploy multiple agency resources in a timely fashion. And that, I think, made a difference. It made a positive difference. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I think that it's worth everybody taking a quick flip through when you have a moment to understand the depth of the recovery actions. I feel confident based on the conversations that we have had and have been having with those affected companies or companies that had employees that sustained severe damage to their homes. I think that we're definitely tracking in a good direction. Right now, the challenge, which may be a question on your mind, is what do these companies need? They do need to source the funding from from the different agencies that have pledged money. And they also wanted to make sure that they are not exposed to these kinds of catastrophic events again, which has, and this isn't the primary reason we're doing it at all, but we have had several conversations with several companies that are going to ask the BRE effort of the COSA-DC to help them find new facilities that are out of the danger zone. And we did have several companies state that the disruption is not something they're going to tolerate again. And so that has been kind of a tangent to our full effort. So it's not just a tactical recovery, it's also a strategic recovery as well. That's the basic update. If there's any questions.
If we could, before we push Michael out of the podium, I'd like to talk about his outreach and the strength he brings, and see if I can get the board on board with something I would request. And that, we all know one of Michael's greatest strengths is helping an organization or an individual find resources in order to make their business go or grow in San Angelo. You mentioned that you reached out to NAICS code qualified companies.
Yes, sir.
I wonder if, and those are the ones we could fund, but I wonder if we wouldn't better serve our business community by reaching out to all businesses in Tom Green County who were in that zone, whether or not we can serve them with cash and find out what, if any, needs they have. For example, if he finds somebody that we can't serve, but the city might be able to help in some way, I think we would like to know about that, or the county. And so I think we want to open that window and find out what needs there are. There may not be any, and I'd be surprised if Michael hasn't had some contact with non-qualifying businesses, but I think we ought to think about that, because it's not just our resources he's selling or making connections with.
One of the reasons I included this slide is one of the things I noticed about it was it talks about the combination, in a typical response, the combination of volunteer workers, available grant money, which would be COSA-DC or other outside federal grants and what have you, private funding from banks and what have you, different foundations. And just because COSA-DC can't necessarily help a business doesn't mean there's not somebody in this whole array of things or agencies that may be able to provide some help. So if we know about them and we can get them to somebody that can help them out a little bit, I think it's kind of incumbent on us to do that to the extent that we can. And I also wanted to point out just that, you know, we're saying that Costa DC is going to be part of the fix, not all of the fix. And this just shows that would be something that's typical of pretty much any disaster that any community faces.
Well, I would probably have to step away from my position on this board to fully engage, but I can tell you that I know of a business that suffered $500,000 worth of damage that does not fall in any NAICS code, is not FEMA authorized, and yet is licensed by the federal government to do what it does. And so there are businesses who fall in that ghost area that are still seeking help.
There are.
Yeah.
There were several companies on this list that are probably more retail-type operations. I didn't check to see if they were actually NAICS code qualified. I hit everybody in the flood areas because we certainly wanted to make sure that we knew the full story. But I agree with that. There are several companies which I can extrapolate from this data set and identify, and these are just the ones that I saw. But I think that having that multi-agency approach towards companies that either are NAICS code qualified or not is very important for the morale and health of our economy and our city. It's incumbent upon us in these positions of resources and leadership to provide fast action, rapid response aid to our neighbors that are hurting. And it took from July 7th to July 15th to contact these companies because we weren't going through them like telemarketers. We were going to each company, and it was at least 1 to 2 hours of understanding the story behind the action, what their response was, very near loss of life in 2 cases, and it's very dramatic. And it was very traumatic for several of these companies, watching not just their businesses and their plants, their physical plants get damaged, but watching their products that were stacked, wrapped, ready to deploy, ready to send to customers, now have to be tagged out as damaged, which renders them useless, which puts them in a very, very tight bind. So the stories are pretty heartbreaking. And I agree with that. I think that all companies should be treated with the same attention as if, no matter what they are, no matter what they do.
Well, I think we send you forth with eyes wide open, and we will have you back, of course, each month to tell us where you are and where we're headed with that project. So we'll look forward to that information as you come back to us.
I will be glad to do it. It's been tough. It's a little emotional sometimes. We're hearing some legacy companies that have taken serious damage, but you wouldn't know it by driving past their businesses. I have to thank Desiree and the team at the SBDC and the SBA and all the different members of leadership at the United Way. They're not necessarily trained for this kind of work, but I have seen people that I've known for years, our colleagues, go into really an unofficial disaster recovery leadership mode, and their phones are on 24 hours a day. Everybody is pretty enthusiastic about helping. And so right now, we're the COAD. We will report to the Costa DC team, which will be translated to all of you when the next COAD meeting is. I believe they're going to have them monthly. I don't know for sure. Do we know, Desiree? Okay, this is a way for all the different agencies. I counted 11 to work more closely together on the recovery effort. Because right now, what you might be seeing is that there are so many different agencies, both public, federal, and private volunteer, just scattering out into the area. And we're hearing stories of FEMA making assurances to certain homeowners that they would be fully recovered or substantially recovered. still quiet, and then we'll hear of other residences where an entire strike team from Samaritan's Purse swarm the house and do probably 6 weeks' worth of repair in 3 days. We're trying to make sure that all of the aid is sent to these victims equitably and in a timely fashion. So we're kind of figuring this out as we go. It's very organic and it's rather fluid. We have also found residences that have been damaged where they don't want any help. They don't want anybody touching them. They want to do it themselves. There's also a fear that if they begin rebuilding their homes in an area that's prone to flooding, that they're going to be run off of their land. So it's a very organic situation. And we're just reporting all of this to Michael and Bob, Nora, and to the SBDC as we find it. Not 100% sure what the end result of the information dissemination is going to be, but we want to make sure that anything we find out in the field is sent to anybody who can help.
Desiree, did you have something you wanted to add to the discussion?
While she's coming up, I need to apologize. I should have put her name right on the agenda, but they've been doing a terrific job trying to reach out and be available.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, I would just like to echo Michael in saying thanks. I appreciate the partnership and the support, and just kind of take a second to educate, because that's really the heart of what the SBDC does. And so, you know, when the board supports the Small Business Development Center in whatever way, whether that be our physical location in the BRC, the projects that we work on together, it is inadvertently your way of touching the larger business community. And so when we look at these disaster efforts and the educational efforts of the Small Business Development Center, we think of small business. And so I just want to kind of remind everybody that small business to the federal government is really big business, right? We're looking at 500 or fewer employees. And so 96% of our local businesses fall under 50 employees. So even a lot of our primary job creators that the BREP program targets and different initiatives under the Development Corporation, those are still relatively small businesses compared to that small business threshold. I want to point out the effort of the Small Business Administration and their work to fund some of these projects is that disaster loans are eligible to all businesses. So that physical disaster damage is eligible until September 4th. Those are things that we're trying to educate. Like Michael said, they were, you know, the last month or so, we've been in that response mindset. And so I think this is a really great opportunity with y'all's help and the help of the Chamber of Commerce to educate small businesses and the public on the reality of Build Back Better, right? So as initial resources came out, we worked very closely with the partnership to share about grant opportunities, whether that be local, regional, or, you know, through FEMA, right? Different federal resources. So we push out that information, but at this point, we want to really educate our businesses and our homeowners on the idea of accepting federal assistance in the way of low-interest loans. Like Michael said, what is that we're looking to prepare for when this happens again? You know, as we rebuild our home or rebuild our business. And so that SBA disaster funding can also cover building back better to prevent future disaster, to build infrastructure, to not only repair, but improve infrastructure as well. And so I think that's just something that I really want to share about, is that we're here to educate the community, both homeowners. We have we have a disaster page on our website. I've worked very closely with Brian and the city to share information out. We too did outreach initially to our small business clients, people that we knew had existing relationships with that were in the flooded areas. We've recently gained access to additional contact information through the Concho Valley Workforce Development Board, trying to narrow down by address, which is not an easy job, you know, exactly where that floodplain is and where those affected businesses were. And so my advisors are continuing to do outreach to verify if those businesses have had damage. If so, where are they at in the mental acceptance of possibly having to get a loan to do that repair and construction. And so I think that's really the best benefit of the partnership, is that if there are resources like any other day at the City of San Angelo Development Corporation, when folks come in and ask for help, if they're not necessarily eligible for one program, we're working together to find programs that they are eligible for, whether that be traditional financing, management, marketing assistance, whatever it is. And so I think this disaster recovery is a prime example of that. Is we're going to help where we can and point people to the resources that we have available, and try to help educate as to what's a reality for a lot of these businesses. And now that we're moving past those grant funds, we're really looking at that small business lending, working with our local lenders and those federal loan programs. Do y'all have any questions for me about the eligibility?
Thank you, Desiree.
Thank you, guys.
What has been your source of grant funding that you've been able to help with so far?
Well, for businesses, we've had a couple of different options. Primarily a grant fund through Lift Fund. It's a CDFI. It's a financial institution, a community development financial institution. They have not only free grants, so essentially non-repayment, right, but also zero interest loans that were made available through a program through the state of Texas. And so they're able to loan out funds at zero interest for a short time. I think it's like 36 months. That's been our primary grant option. We've discussed with folks locally what could be possible, but there's been a big emphasis on homeowners right now, and that's to be expected.
How many have Lift Fund been able to help with, do you know?
Oh, that's a great question, Matt. I'm not sure because that program spans, it's actually the Hill Country flood disaster relief. So I could probably get some statistics on that for y'all. As far as like who's received it in Tom Green County, because that's open to, I think, 10 to 15 counties, just off the top of my head.
Any other funding that you've been able to provide grants to small businesses?
No.
How many of small businesses or any of these that are on Mike's list or that aren't on Michael's list, because these doesn't include retail, have any taken advantage of coming in and applying for the low interest loan?
Yes, so I think your list is just primary job creators, correct? Yeah, so Michael shared the ISTAT report, which listed 89 businesses that had been affected. Again, in our initial conversations with those businesses, right off the bat, I'm talking like the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday following the event, it was focused primarily on grants. And so we encourage that. We always encourage that of all of our businesses. Take what available grant funding you can. This second round of outreach will be a heavier focus on those loan programs. So thank y'all for supporting the Small Business Administration and their Business Disaster Recovery Center in the BRC. I love that it's BRC for both. Because what that is really doing is those folks are going to be here for a good amount of time, and they haven't seen a whole lot of activity. Again, because as we face that damage and such a surreal loss of business, those folks are not ready to take that bite of a loan, right? They don't know how they're going to keep the lights on for the next month, much less pay back a loan for the next 10 years. And so that's part of what we do at the Small Business Development Center is providing that long-term education and recovery relief, right? How can we build you back, diversify your income? What are we doing in the way of marketing to help you explore new markets, to gain additional revenue and income? Really looking at the business as a whole rather than just the disaster itself. How can we reshape the business to support them through this? And then how can we leverage that loan? So it's really kind of bringing them to the reality of it's this or maybe nothing. And so really helping guide them through that process from technical business management to somewhat counseling. And so really helping them come to the realization of what those long-term effects are. And it's so important to have that secondary level of outreach now as they're starting to digest those thoughts and process, because those physical disaster loans have to be in by September 4th. And so if they decide they don't need that funding, that's fine. But even when we look at homeowners and businesses, they probably have not truly assessed the full amount of damage. And so even they may get their FEMA grant, FEMA gives them 10, SBA will come in and say, we'll fund the rest of the cost of construction and remediation. So what does that look like long-term? Those people need to be applying before September 5th, September 4th, because after that date, they're not able to apply for those physical disaster loans anymore. The economic injury disaster loans are kind of another conversation. Those are for businesses that are suffering economically, like Michael talked about, that long-term economic damage. I'll give you an example, because as y'all know, we cover 13 counties. I have a client in Junction that is a dry cleaning business and laundromat, and they primarily serve the camps out of Hunt. So that was $80,000 in revenue gone overnight. That was their entire summer season. So they were able to apply for an economic injury disaster loan, which is going to carry them through the next fiscal year. So those are examples of some of the success of that. So I think that's a really long answer, sorry, Matt, but essentially there's been buy-in, but we're gonna have to do our part as business advisors to educate those businesses on the long-term value of this loan investment.
Thank you, Desiree. Do you think there's value? I know that September 4th deadline, that's a FEMA deadline that is, based on the July 4th date for keeping the DRC open for residential or the business side. Do we as a leadership in the community need to advocate to try to get that September 4th extended? Or, they're going to look at what's the pipeline of people, and if it's a trickle and there's not very many people asking for help by September 4th, they're going to shut off the DRC, and FEMA doesn't go away, but they're not going to have a rapid response. What are you seeing from the BDRC, the activity? Does it warrant extending it past September 4th or advocating to our FEMA friends?
Yeah, so I can't speak for FEMA. I would really reach out to Ashley and Cameron to kind of see what that looks like. Because that is on the individual side, FEMA only serves individuals. I will admit I'm less knowledgeable on that. As far as extending that deadline, I don't believe that's a possibility. I think that's federal. I think that's dictated by the federal programs. But I think in the case of the Business Recovery Center specifically, I have spoke with the SBA team because that was my initial concern. I was like, oh my gosh, we don't have 100 people here. They're going to pack up and leave. That is not the case. So for that economic injury, they're for sure going to be here through the end of that date, but then the SBA team will most likely stay beyond that to continue to support business recovery. And then, one of the reasons I really advocated for them to be in the building is it creates a hub for anybody that's not aware of what the BRC is and what it stands for, which is really to be a hub of business resources in our community, is that we are the long-term assistance. So SBDC is federally funded by the Small Business Administration. We do not actually issue any loan information. We don't handle that side, but we are partnered with them so we can help provide those resources even beyond that disaster team leaving. So if businesses are wanting to apply up until next April, we'll be here to support that process.
I guess I got a question for Michael. Of these 10 that are in green that meet the NICS code definition of being potentially eligible for COCDC funds, I realize we're in a 60-day public hearing in the middle of that process. Do you think that this $1 million that has been allocated, that we could be able to definitely help these 10 businesses?
If I understand, the question is the $1 million sufficient to provide assistance to these companies as listed? I believe it is. a lot of the damage that was done, that I saw, was not inventory accounting damage, meaning I don't understand all of the costs of equipment that was damaged or products that were damaged and now had to be tagged out as damaged, even if they were just wet. They cannot sell them because they got wet. So they're not necessarily destroyed, they're just tagged out. I think that the $1 million, or a large portion of it, would be sufficient to help these companies. And at this point, why I don't have a definitive answer on that is because several of these companies are still assessing the actual impact themselves. And that's what we see. So it's not just drywall, it's, or computer towers that were damaged, are they rendered destroyed? Those kinds of things. So they're still figuring that out as they go. But we've been staying in touch with them every week, at least once a week. We'll talk to them, or they'll call me just to let me know what's going on. And so I think that is a sufficient number.
Sorry to ask so many questions.
I'm glad you are.
Please continue. Do you have any other questions from the table?
I've got one question, and maybe this is for Michael. Were there any businesses that were in I know there was a map of the flood zone that were in the center there that cannot go back to that location?
You want to go back to the map? Do you want to see the map again?
Well, just a general question.
Helpful for you?
I would.
There it is.
So I know that there was a map that was presented to council for residential homes that were in the center of that flood zone that cannot go back and rebuild in that area. Were there any businesses in that center?
That's what's considered the floodway.
Okay, floodway.
You can't rebuild in that area.
Were there any businesses in the floodway?
Yes, on July 7, which is a Monday, the team at the Annex Building, the Water Department, provided me with a hard copy of that map, which they had just produced. And so that's what I used as a way of targeting which businesses to call first. So it wasn't necessarily NAICS code companies in alphabetical order. It was who's in this area, this floodway area, and that was where I came up with the 45 number. But only 10 of them sustained any damage.
The question that I'm hearing is, are there any businesses in that area that will not be able to rebuild where they are?
Probably. Although most of, yes.
Can I
Yes,
follow up? Bob
I
said
think
you
so.
Bob said you can't rebuild. Are you talking about residential? I've heard that on residential. I have not
Either
heard that
one.
on business.
Yeah, if you're in the floodway, that's a FEMA-defined waterway that's meant to convey water. So, no, you can't rebuild in that.
Even for business?
Correct.
Correct.
Resident, no structures. Excuse me. In the
We
floodway.
may want to have some focus on those locations.
Yes, and there were a couple of companies that knew, once we got to discussing why I was there, they got pretty quiet because they didn't want to avail themselves to any sensible, well-meaning, however you want to put it, legislation that could prevent them from staying where they are.
Yeah.
So they said, we're good. And I'm looking around thinking, you're not good. You're in way not good position. But they're
Well-
like, it's going to be okay. We'll take care of it ourselves. Basically politely saying, thanks for coming out, but we're going to be okay. Don't tell anybody that we got damage.
I think we're counting on your discretion for that. Don't tell us about somebody who doesn't want to be told on.
No, and I'm not naming companies, but you understand, this is something I'd never experienced before, where people who had needed help were some of them, there were a couple or two, that were kind of intimidated, and they didn't want to accidentally say, oh, by the way, sure, we'll provide you help to rebuild your business, but you can't be here, because those are areas that they've operated out of sometimes for like 50 years. And I don't know how to navigate that. We're working on it together.
We'll sail our boat somewhere else.
Yep. Well,
Before we leave this, I just wanted to take a second and thank you for for your response and your efforts, Michael, and the rest of the chamber, and Desiree and her team. I know that the resources that we can offer as a board are limited, and this is clearly a very complex issue with multiple funding sources, limitations on how funds can be used in certain situations.
That's true.
It's hard to navigate. But I'm very appreciative of your efforts and what you guys are doing in the response. So thank you.
You're welcome, and we're gonna stay at it. We're gonna keep staying at it until we recover. And that's what's been nice. Thank you for that. But what's been really good is that the first couple days it was complete astonishment, and it was war stories, flood stories, frightening stories. Then it became despair. Do we even want to rebuild? Do we even want to stay in business? We're talking probably some fairly substantial tax yield entities that employ a lot of people. And then it was frustration. You know, we have at least 11 agencies in the area, and we see a lot of press about it, we hear a lot about it, but no one's calling us, meaning the affected businesses. And then it became anger. And for about a week, we were getting, they weren't directing it to us, but we were hearing them just lambasting everything. And then it became just resignation. I guess that's just the way it is. And that's the point where we got nervous, because we don't want people to just resign and say, oh, well. So we're looking at a tactical response and then a strategic response. And that's why we were glad to be able to follow in quickly with, it was really just good timing that our experience on the ground matched almost to the day when the recovery effort began officially. I'm sorry, there were some comments here. I want to hear that. What? Yes, sir.
I just said it sounds like the stages of grief.
That's exactly what it is. And we didn't, well, we experienced that. We didn't really understand that's what we were experiencing. And you see even dynamics like companies that were just hit really hard, and then 50 feet away, the neighbor company wasn't even touched. And there's a certain envy. Why them? Why not? You know, why me? Why not them? And you didn't see much of a topographical change either. It's almost like it was just very arbitrary. And that was because the water came in so fast. It wasn't soaking in. It was just trying to get down river fast. And it came at tremendous force.
Well, again, thank you for your...
It was a tidal wave. I mean, it was a wave.
Thank you for your...
To share, obviously, we've been involved in this, and so I just got this report yesterday talking about the residential impact and what impact that could have on our property tax and people's families' lives that are impacted, workers who work for these companies. In Tom Green County, 74 homes have been declared totaled, destroyed. Now think about all your friends you know, 74 homes are gone. 573 have major flood damage in that little red zone. Major is if you have over 18 inches of water running through your home. 913 homes had minor damage. Minor is less than 18 inches of water running through your home. So think about that. If you walk in your home and look at your electric outlets and you had water running up to your electric outlets through your home, think what that would do to your home. Those are called minor. And then 341 homes were affected, and either water got up to the door, got into under the house, but maybe not into the house. That's 1,901 homes in that red zone. So that's a major chunk of our neighbors. I know Coast DC, hopefully our $1 million to help with affordable housing is going to make a piece of that. But this was a big event, bigger than I think. And until you hear these numbers, people don't realize how big an event this is.
One thing I discovered, Matt, when I was touring, I started from the bottom and I worked all the way up, heading towards 2105. There may be questions or have been questions, well, why would people have their homes and residences in these known flood ways? This corridor you see has flood control, not creeks. I mean, these are maintained like canals. You don't really see them because you don't look for them, but they're all over. They're scattered. There are two main ones that run from almost 2105 all the way down. It was just the sheer volume of water totally overloaded their capacity by probably triple. And it's not the fault of anybody living in that area that they got that kind of an impact. And there were people who told us stories. They showed us their metal warehouse garage doors peeled back like a can. They said that's how fast the water was flowing. And within 24 hours, a lot of it had already run downriver. There was puddling, but it was truly a wave, a crest. It didn't crest, but it bulged. So it started off slow, then it hit with I heard one guy say he thought it was about 9 feet, and then it quickly went down, but the damage was already done. But you're right. Damage, as we are learning together, is a subjective term. And I'm glad you mentioned that right there. Yeah, that was very helpful.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? We've been here for a little over an hour. Do we need to take a break? Is everybody good?
Sure. Continue.
All right, well, let's continue then. We'll move to discussion and possible action regarding the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce Professional Service Agreement and authorizing the board president to negotiate and execute all necessary documents with ratification by City Council. We'll hear a presentation by Steve Elanius, President and CEO, San Angelo Chamber of Commerce. But before we do that, Steve, if you'll bear with me, I would like to offer what I think is a solution. It's been at least 5 years since the Chamber received an increase in funding from COSA DC, and taking this into consideration, I've done some math and would like to offer this as a logical solution. Our average inflation rate over the last 5 years has been 3.23%. Let's say that that's a good starting point for increases in the funding. Let's say that we doubled that for excellent return on investment, 6.5%. That also seems to be a logical growth rate as well. Let's say that because we have not funded them at a level they should have been funded at for the last 5 years, we'll add some punitive damages in there. So I used 10% for a growth rate. And if we had given the Chamber an increase of 10% each year for the last 5 years, those funding levels would have increased from $262.5 in 2021 to $288.750 the following year, $317,625 in 2023, then $349,387 in 24, and $384,326 in 2025. We would be at a funding level for 2026 of $422,758. And I think that that is a reasonable amount to start with for this year. And then we can look at it again in mid-year to see if this is paying off with measurable successes. And we should put into place what those measurable successes would look like. I would like to offer that as a funding level that I could live with. Obviously, I can't make a motion, but I think that that's a good number. Is there other comment on the table before we invite Mr. Elanius to the microphone?
Well, I appreciate that. That is a good way of looking at it. It doesn't take into account those prior years that have been underfunded, while that, using your 10% rolling average increase, there's money left on the table that, people that have been paying dues and otherwise supporting the Chamber and other measures. The Chamber's been subsidizing the good work of economic development. that this board should be able to pay for. And we asked for a budget presentation of what does the chamber need to do their job. And I think all of us who have listened to the work that they've done in recruiting jobs and in many instances not requiring incentive money, that they've been able to do it through their good works. That is a return on investment that goes way beyond those calculations. And Steve and crew gave us a good presentation of what their proposed budget, what they say they will do with the funds if given to them and not micromanaging them, and I think that was an amount I thought was fair and reasonable. And I guess I'd like to hear from Steve of his response to your offer.
Are there other comments at the table?
I'm kind of falling in the middle, to be honest with you. I respect and actually appreciate the work that, Rick, that you put into this, and I agree with you. I think that's a fair assessment. But looking at the proposal that was presented to us from the chamber and going to that number, again, for everything that we have detail on, every item, there's a paragraph and detail for an explanation for every item within their budget. Now, I haven't seen a full budget, and that's where I have some concerns. Haven't seen a full budget of all revenue sources that go into this budget, strictly just looking at what comes from the county and what has come from us and what is being requested of us. And so with those increases to each line item that was presented to us, that gets us to $475,000, $475, $456. That's where I land, personally. Again, respect and appreciate, and could go with, I think, Rick's proposal there. But in fairness, I think giving the chamber what they requested in detail, I think suits me personally better, and that is the 475. The difference between that 475 and what they actually requested of 587 is $112,389, to which we have no detail on. Was not presented in any way other than that was supplemental funding coming from Cornerstone. So I don't know what that funding went to. It's not in any of these paragraphs. It's not in any of these items. So I essentially took that off the table, not understanding that. So again, based on the proposal given, we've looked at this over the last 3 meetings. That's where I'm landing is 475, based on presentation and information. So that's my piece, my opinion, for whatever it's worth.
I don't, before you start, Steve, I'm sorry. The numbers and the funding sources, as you noted, Steve, it's a little confusing, to be completely honest. It's challenging when you have multiple revenue sources that are funding a single budget, and we're making funding decisions here without really having an understanding of what the other funding sources may or may not be doing. So I went through and put together just the spreadsheet that shows the proposed amounts and then current what's being funded by the city contract and I think Cornerstone, as you've indicated, and then the county, and to show the increases. And I'm looking at categories here. I think part of what's important in this process is that if we don't settle on what the chamber has proposed, we need to understand where the adjustments are going to be made within this budget. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to monitor the agreement going forward. So I've got an extra copy. If you guys want one, you're welcome to take it.
I do want one. Mr. Stribling, I think that micromanaging that budget is not something that we're going to want to get into.
No, I don't want to do that either.
But I certainly agree that we ought to have some easy-to-measure results on investment.
Yes.
And so, yes, I think that needs to be part of our funding going forward.
And I'm talking about basic stuff like the economic development, the Texas Economic Development Corporation is a line item. If in the discussion, the decision is to cut that or reduce it, that has a different impact than, maybe what's going to be spent on travel and trade shows. That's maybe a number that could be adjusted differently. So that's it.
I kind of glossed over one of my topics of discussion here, and that was that at mid-year, we would be able to take a look. I fully expect that there might be some things that they have to leave out of their budget because they didn't get the level of funding they wanted.
Okay.
And I could see them coming to us mid-year and saying, we really need this.
Sure.
And we'd like to request funding for this specific item. I wouldn't have a problem with that. And it might be a better way for us to meet some of those one-time costs or, anyway.
And Rick, to that point, that's kind of where I landed as well. Taking what they've requested in this 5-page document, again, equates to $475,000 coming from this board, COCDC funds, with the understanding that mid-year, they will have yet to touch Cornerstone funds or any other funding. So I agree with your comment and Mr. Stribling's comment of, let's look at this mid-year. Let's start with what they've given us today. Let's start with that, which is 475. Let's look at this mid-year and determine, I assume our city attorney will agree that we can come back mid-year and amend any of this and determine, okay, our fault. We have underestimated travel. We have underestimated the recruiting process, business retention. And then at that point we can determine. But what I'd hate to do is go ahead and allocate a number that exceeds what was presented in details until we have more information. That's just where I land. I need more information to get to 587 because I've only gotten 475.
So, first of all, thank you all. And I really want to start out by saying this is really a team approach. We appreciate the opportunity and the funding that you do provide us. I think it's a partnership. I think it's critical for our community's success that we're on the same page and we're working the same direction. Having said that, the challenge really comes if you look at what we proposed as far as the funding as a economic development entity and going concern. This is a small budget. If you look at like-sized cities that are doing economic development activities that we are competing against on a regular basis, what we're proposing at 587 is fairly small compared to some of these other budgets. When you look at communities similar size, population, and some of the same target industries that we're going after. We have, over the years, Cornerstone has helped underwrite the economic development efforts for the chamber and for the city. And really the intent and purpose of Cornerstone was originally created was with Goodfellow Air Force Base, and when the BRAC was being discussed, and it was designed to be that kind of resource, whether it's for lobbying efforts or other things, to keep the operations Goodfellow moving forward. Over the years, that Cornerstone has basically underwritten the shortfall that occurred as far as economic development activities and programs. In addition, the chamber has made up through other ways those shortfalls or covered those costs. And so the challenge really comes for us is how do we stay competitive in terms of a very competitive industry? How do we continue to fund what's necessary to move forward and be successful? I felt like what we presented was a fairly reasonable request, and I get there is a sticker shock that goes when you go from 262 to 587. But without that increase, there will be challenges in terms of how competitive can we be. And I appreciate the offer that, hey, if you get into this and you come back 6 months from now, we want to reconsider some of these funding requests. I'm going to go back to my original presentation. One of my key elements was making sure that we are paying the staff accordingly to the skill sets that they bring to the table and in comparison to what we're competing against with other communities. And I promise you, Their salaries are not the top of the rung, but right now they're at the bottom of the rung, and I'd like to try to get that to the middle. And then the other parts of it is just how much do we want to be engaged and how much do we want to be present in the state of Texas in doing economic development. And so I feel like it's a reasonable request. Obviously, we'll work with whatever you all decide to fund us at, but recognize that it has been underfunded, not only for 5 years, but probably going back for at least 10. And so trying to catch up and then to make us competitive in terms of competing against other communities.
Steve, just kind of a basic question here. Could you, and sorry to ask you to do this off the top of your head, and first off, I completely agree with the staffing portion of this. There is no question in my mind personally that you are spot on. With the talent pool that we have and the staffing we have and the results that they've provided, it is unquestionable that they deserve to have more. You're right, there is an initial sticker shock on this. So again, I'm trying to look at this from an analytical standpoint of we were at 262, going to 587. How much more were you supplementing on top of that 262? How much was, I shouldn't say overspent, because that's not a fair term.
Yeah.
But how much over 262 were you short from us?
Yeah, depending on the year, I'd have to go back. I can't give you the exact number. I have to go back to our audit.
Sure.
But it was typically, Michael, on that, we had down that audit numbers, it was showing.
Again, I'm trying to look for justification
No, yeah.
to get there.
Yeah, I want to get you there too.
Is it true that you are currently at approximately $88,000 over budget right now?
When you say over budget,
Short.
it's
Over revenue?
short, but it's being underwritten by the chamber and other funds. That is correct, for 2025.
Okay.
Steve, to get to what I think will answer your question. We have information from 2022. According to the audit, their revenue was $360,000, including our money, 90 from Tom Green County, some donated revenue, donated facilities. Total revenue, $360,000, total expenditures, $481. So $120,000 revenue, expenditures over revenue in 2022.
Okay.
In 2023, revenue, largely the same. This says 70 from the county, 80 from Cornerstone, total revenue, 422 and change. Total expenditures, 590 and change. So expenditures in excess of revenue for that year of approximately $170,000. 2024, the audit is not complete. What we have are unaudited numbers from their CPA firm that does their monthly work. Revenue, 438, including 85 from Cornerstone. Expenditures, again unaudited, 554 and change for an overage of $115,000. For 2025, we have, these obviously are unaudited, and it's not a complete year, so.
Sure.
For the first 6 months, this is calendar year, 176 and change for revenue, 265 for expenditures. That's an excess of expense over revenue of 88,000 and change. Based on those numbers, the 3.5 year history is 498 excess of expense over revenue. That's the basis.
And so to me,
Thank you, Michael.
and I'm going to go back to, there's, there's nothing more powerful than creating opportunities in a community. There's nothing more powerful than a person getting a good paying job. It impacts a family, impacts the neighborhood, impacts the community. There's nothing more powerful than increasing the tax roll for the community, that where you see that shift where it goes from residential to commercial in terms of the tax base. And right now, I think San Angelo, I think it's probably 60% residential and maybe 40% commercial. And with some of the projects that we're working on and that you're aware of, is going to dramatically change the makeup of commercial versus residential. So again, I would appeal to you and recognize that this is an opportunity that comes along in a community probably every 20 years. And this is an opportunity to set this community on a trajectory that I think is going to pay huge dividends for us. And so I recognize that both the two Mikes have been very conservative in terms of how they spend money. I'm going to use this year as an example. They've taken 0 trips. Now, how do we compete? You know, we're playing catch with stuff that lands with us, but we're not being aggressive or kinetic in terms of going after projects that we can bring to this community. And that, to me, is a concern. You look at who we're competing, just up the road, I'm going to use Abilene as a prime example. If you look up just the road who we're competing against, they're engaged in trade shows, trade missions. They're showing up at different things where we're not even at the table. And I think it's important for our community to be at the table, that San Angelo is recognized and represented there. And I think we have not, and it's not a criticism, having been here 8 months, I don't want you to think this is a criticism of the community. It's just time that we step up and do the things necessary to make us competitive.
The revenue that Abilene receives in order to support their economic development efforts far is beyond what Costa DC receives.
Absolutely.
And so they have an ability to fund at a much higher level than we do.
Sure.
And I think
And it's millions. It's millions.
Yeah.
And what we're asking for is 587.
Yeah.
Rick, I guess the question I would ask, instead of coming at it from an inflation plus or a rider, I'm looking at the summarized budget Travis put on a single page here. And I, look through there and you see what the increase of their proposed, the 212,000. I would ask, go through, even though we say we don't want to micromanage, that's what is happening here. We'll go through here and say, well, what do you not want them to do? If you say, I don't think you need to be traveling as much, well, what do you think that number should be? I don't think you need to be spending as much time doing corporate headquarter visits. Well, how much? Half of that amount. In other words, go through and start cutting. In other words, this is what they're saying they need to do their job. And if you're saying, well, that doesn't come up with another way, we're trying to get to a number. So if you're going to cut something, if we're going to fund them less than what they've asked for, they're going to have to go through and cut something. They're going to not do any travel. They're not going to join the Texas Economic Development Corporation dues. In other words, what's going to be cut, and then that's what the revised budget should be.
Let me add, isn't that up to the chamber to decide what is cut based on the budget that we allocate to them? I mean, we don't want to micromanage at the same time. I'm not saying that they don't need an increase. I tend to agree with Rick's application here. I mean, it falls on us that they've not received an increase for the last 4 years, so we are carry that burden and do some application or find some rhyme or reason to get to the number that we either are going to have a majority of the board agree to, or unanimous, whatever it may be, or a lesser number. I don't think it's punitive that it falls on us. There are people out there who have less increases based on COLA, cost of living adjustments, that we see, and they make do. Just putting it in real-world perspective is how I look at it. And Steven said they're going to make do with what they receive. We're not saying we're not going to give an increase, but I don't think that is the question for us to answer and what they cut or don't cut. Our question is how much do we wish to increase based on the proposal and the numbers we have and we're comfortable with. So
Matt,
I don't know, that wasn't addressed to me.
You
Sorry.
asked me
Yes.
what I would cut. And I struggled with that because I did not know what we were funding on a line item basis in years past. And that's why I left that completely out of the equation when I started looking at what should we fund them above what we're currently funding them. I went to this dispassionate, non-emotional, just the facts, ma'am, kind of increase based on what I thought we should do. And then I'm going to allow them to create their budget with the amount of dollars that they get. And if they can find additional funding in other places to support the other things that they wanted from us but are not going to be able to get from us, more power to them. And if they feel like at mid-year that they still can't get those things covered and want to come to us and say, I want you to fund this $60,000 for travel that we've not been able to find to cover it, then we take that under consideration. We give them an additional $60,000 to cover travel. It's kind of where like I said, I struggled with this. I was rehearsing this at 2 o'clock this morning, trying to figure out how do we let them do what they need to do and still be fiscally responsible with the tax dollars that are given us to manage. And so that's my answer to your question. I think that I think we're at a point where we need to have a motion of some sort. I'm tired of being on high center with this, and I think that we need to fund the chamber. They have an October 1st deadline that they would like to hit.
No, the deadline is 12/31. We've been shooting for 10/1, and of course, I committed to Steve that I would work toward that timeframe so that the board had the freedom to make a change with that effective date. I still believe that with an approval and action today from this board, we can get that done. So that should be part of, I'm sorry, Travis, that should be part of what you consider today. A normal renewal would be a 12/31 thing. We probably want part of your motion to include a 10/1 implementation date, if that's what you want.
Okay, thank you.
And probably a term of the agreement as well, so I don't know if we're looking at 2-year, 1 year, what you want to do with that.
Keeping in mind that that can be amended at any
Yeah,
given
of
time
course.
during the term. Okay.
I think the other important part of this discussion is monitoring this contract. And again, I think it's difficult when you've got multiple funding sources that you guys are maybe answering to, but how is this monitored? What's your vision there?
So if in the package, the budget package I gave you, we did some key performance indicators, KPIs.
Yes, sir.
I envision us coming back on a quarterly basis and updating the board on where we are on those KPIs. And if you look at those KPIs, I think there are some stretch goals in those. I think we're going to stretch ourselves to make it. And I think it's the type of elements that you want to be measuring as a board in terms of our performance. And so, talking with the two mics, we kicked around what we thought was reasonable, and we're very comfortable with the KPIs that we presented in there, and I think we're going to have some great success.
Okay.
So I'll just one last comment, if I may. And Travis, thank you for doing this math on this, which actually makes me feel a little bit better getting to that 212,956 number, which is where I got. And then asking for the financials over the last few years, we'll just call it 150, 120, 170, 115 that you were short in 22, 23, and 24. So in my mind, again, I believe it's a fair approach to start. And I say that in bold, to start. This is not the final product, but based on the increases you've requested, is $212,956. Based on prior years' shortfalls, I think that's covers that plus some and allows you to do more, be more proactive. And again, I do hope you come back mid-year, which I would like to see, come back mid-year and say, I told you so. We need more. This is why. But at that point, we'll have a lot more information, can make a much more informed decision. So again, I go back to, I feel 475 is a fair start approach, and then come back to us in 6 months. This is a partnership. Prove me wrong. I told you so. I'd like to hear, but again, I think that's a compromise going from 422. I think 475 is a fair compromise in my opinion to start, and let's go from there. We're not trying to handcuff you. We obviously want the gold standard in the city of San Angelo.
We want to go out and compete and win also. So we're gonna make it work. Whatever you all decide as a board, and that is a commitment I've made, and if I've made presentations to you in the past, that the partnership, the collaboration is critical. This is not going to be an issue with us, and so my request is give us the gas money.
Sure.
We've got the vehicle, which is the community, but give us the gas money to get this stuff done.
Steve, can I have that as a motion? I think we need a place to get started, and if it fails at the table, then we can continue to another number. But if I could have that as a form of a motion, and we'll see if you can get a second.
And just to clarify, the existing scope that is within our contract is sufficient, is what you're saying? So we do not need to adjust anything within our contract to add additional items to the scope or any other measurable items?
I think.
In my mind, no, but we might have.
I think he's proposed an excellent set of key performance indicators.
Okay.
And I think we take that and go with it.
Okay.
With that strategy, in a quarterly review, we can tune that up also.
Okay.
Create the contract from that.
Okay, there is one other kind of formality here, and it's, if we start 10/1, we have a 12/31 expiration of the current agreement. So is it a 10/1 start, or is it a 12/31? Is this, do we want to start funding, do we want to align this with our fiscal year?
Yes.
Number one. Number two, if we do that, but there's probably some additional funding that we need to kick in for the last couple of months of the current agreement. Just something to think about.
Well, we would.
How would that work?
The new agreement would replace the old agreement. The old agreement would be terminated 3 months early, so there would be no liability
Right.
associated with that. And the new funding strategy would take effect 10/1.
But would the funding of that agreement up to the point that it was terminated be, based on like a monthly allocation, or is it, has the funding request been?
Terms of the new agreement would control.
The current agreement.
New agreement.
Right.
The 10/1 agreement would control. And so that would replace the old agreement, which would be nothing.
Aren't we currently paying them monthly as it is?
Quarterly.
Is it quarterly? Okay.
Okay, there's that helps.
Quarterly.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
it works. Yeah, Travis, to your point, because of the payment schedule now, that works with a 10/1 start also.
Okay.
So that would not be a stretch for us.
I'd be comfortable with that.
So does that need to be in the form with the motion to terminate existing contract as of 10/1?
If it's your intent for an effective date of 10/1, it should be part of the motion.
And
Because
again,
we have, with the existing agreement, staff is powerless to alter that. Only the board, with ratification by council, can alter that contract.
Now, another thing we need to keep in mind, gentlemen, is this all needs to be ratified by the city council, and they cannot negotiate a different number than we bring to them. So when we send it to council, it's either going to be an up or a down, and that's all the action they can take. It is our contract. Okay?
Okay.
So I'll make a motion. Before I do, I will say, again, appreciate the comments of the Cornerstone funds and the intent, and I do believe, in my opinion, I do believe this is a fair approach to start to wean you guys off of that and get those back to the true intent. And hopefully we do get at some point to the number that you guys are comfortable with. But to start, I think it's a fair motion to make in that we will terminate our existing contract with the chamber as of 9/30 and implement the new contract for the chamber services agreement with the amount not to exceed 475, 456, unless we just want to round that up to 476 flat, make it fair. So not to exceed 476. Do we need a term? Is this a year term? Is this a multi-year?
I'd suggest a 2-year term, since we do have the ability to amend at any point during the,
Okay.
but it gives them some comfort and some satisfaction.
Legal advice?
Yeah, I mean, the term is kind of up to your discretion. What we've done in the past is, I think, a 2-year term and then like an option to renew for additional term for the benefit of the corporation. So it would be y'all saying, yeah, we want to enter into this option. But that's at your discretion, really.
Recall that at the last meeting.
I would just say on the term, if we're going to short them by this much, I would advocate a 1-year term with a chance to review the KPIs and adjust as necessary. And you
That
can
is-
probably tell from my tone, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the amount we're looking at shorting them.
That is consistent with the mayor said, a 1+1 where we talk about the amount next year.
And again, we hope to come back mid-year. And review. So again, just a starting point. So motion to terminate, so I'll try to clean this up a little. Motion to terminate existing services contract with the chamber, ending on 9/30. New contract will go into effect 10/1/2025, and the amount not to exceed $476,000 for a 1-year agreement. That's my motion.
I'll second that motion. Probably, I'm on the other end more than I would like, but part of being an attorney is compromise, where both sides are not happy and everybody gets along and lives with the agreement or what's been proposed. So based on that amount of 476, I do appreciate Rick and everyone else who really studied this, and Steve, what the chamber does. So I'll second that 476,000 motion based on, made by Steve.
Is there any public comment? Being none, is there any other comment at the table?
I do have a question. The motion included the language termination. Is it, rather than go through a termination, are you going to handle it as we are supplanting?
Yeah, the new agreement will just have a provision making clear that it supersedes the old agreement.
Sounds good, thanks.
Would you take that as a friendly amendment?
I will. Thank you.
I just do have one last comment. They have asked for an increase, they, being the chamber, on our behalf, has asked for an increase of $212,956 above $262,500 that is currently funded, which comes out to around $476,000. So I don't feel like we're shorting them. I think that they have some additional funds that they would love to have, but they're asking for an increase of $212,956, and I think that's what we're giving them.
Fair start.
With an answer to this. Do I have, if you would support this motion as presented, will you say aye?
Aye.
And if you will not, will you say nay?
Abstain.
Are there any abstentions? I have one abstention.
Just to clarify, an abstention means you're not
Not voting.
So are you voting nay or?
I'll vote nay if you
Okay.
need clarity.
So we have a majority vote, and it is done. Thank you for your work here today. This is important. And Steve,
And
We do wish you the best.
And again, thank you. Like I said before, we're going to work together.
Yes.
We're going to make this work. I think it's important for our community that everybody is successful. And I do believe in that flywheel effect, right? And I think we're going to see that play out over the next 12 to 18 months. And so there's going to be some great successes. And I promise you, we will be back to have some more conversations. So I appreciate, thank you all much for your support.
Thank you, Steve.
Mr. President?
Yes.
If I could point out that item G we've pulled.
I was just about to do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we did pull item G. There is the update, discussion, and possible action regarding improvements at San Angelo Business and Industrial Park. That falls within the purview of existing COSA-DC decisions. It falls underneath that funding level, so they don't need our support for that project. And so we'll remove that from the agenda. There's also no business requiring closed session today, so we'll remove that from the agenda. And are there any follow-up and administrative issues? Anything that you would like to add to a future agenda item? All right, quick reminder, all COSA DC meetings are broadcast on Channel 17 Government Access at 8 a.m. every Wednesday after each meeting. If you enjoy seeing how the sausage is made, please tune in. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 10th, 8:30 a.m. here in the East Mezzanine of City Hall at 72 West College Avenue. Seeing no other business, we'll now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
I have two motions in 2 seconds from the same guys. Ms. Navarez, do we have anybody registered for public comment? Do we have any other questions or discussion from members of the board? Well, if you are in favor of adjournment, will you say bye? If not, will you say nay?
Aye.
Thank you for your work here today. This meeting is adjourned.